Good morning and welcome to all of you, registrants and members of the public, to our second virtual annual general meeting. My name is Ann Priestman. By way of introduction, I've been involved with the college as a board member since 2015. I'm currently serving my first year as the board's president and chair. I'm a specialist in internal medicine and endocrinology and metabolism, and have been practicing for 25 years in New Westminster. I would like to begin by acknowledging that this annual general meeting is being chaired on the unceded and traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations, whose historical relationships with these lands continue to this day. I also acknowledge that all of you attending today remotely are located on territories of First Nations across this great province. Participating with me today during these proceedings are Dr. Heidi Otter, Registrar and CEO, Mr. Graham Kierstead, Chief Legal Counsel and Deputy Registrar of Legal, and Mr. Mike Epp, Chief Operating Officer. I'll now call the 2021 Annual General Meeting to order. I declare that we have a quorum of registrants and in virtual attendance, and that we are duly constituted for the transaction of our business today, which includes adoption of the minutes of the Annual General Meeting of September 25th, 2020, presentation of the board-approved audited financial statements for the period ending February 28th, 2021, appointment of the auditors for the current fiscal year, an in memoriam for registrants who passed away during the past fiscal year from March 1st of 2020 to February 28th of 2021, the President's report, and other business and questions from registrants, after which we will conclude this annual general meeting. For those of you who are joining by video, if you have a question during the proceedings, please use the Q&A feature found on the ribbon at the bottom of your screen. You can ask questions at any time. We will answer them when we get to other business. I will now ask for a motion to adopt the minutes from last year's annual general meeting held on September 25th, 2020. These minutes can be found on the event page of the college website. I invite you all to cast your vote by selecting one option on your screen and clicking Submit. Here are the results. 86% have approved the minutes. The audited financial statements for the year ending February 28th, 2021 have been approved by the board and have been published on the college website. Just as a reminder, if you have questions about the audited financial statements, please use the Q&A feature found on the ribbon at the bottom of your screen, and we will answer when we get to other business. I will now ask for a motion to approve the appointment of the firm PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP as auditors for the current fiscal year. PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP was selected after a comprehensive search process this past year. I invite you to cast your vote by selecting one option on your screen and clicking Submit. Here are the results. 93% have approved the appointment of the auditors. I will now ask for a moment of silence to remember and pay respect to registrants who passed away during the last fiscal year from March 1st of 2020 to February 28th of 2021. Thank you. We continue to live in extraordinary times where uncertainty prevails, where our daily lives are still consumed with a pandemic and overworked healthcare professionals are stretched beyond capacity. While people have repeatedly shown their ability to withstand adversity, there's no doubt this past year has affected us all in some way. With COVID-19 as our pervasive context, the college forged ahead with the priorities that the board established at the beginning of the year. In doing so, we were able to adjust, even evolve, during these unprecedented times while still fulfilling our mandate of public protection. The college remains steadfast in supporting the provincial health officer's response to COVID-19. Vaccinations have offered hope that the pandemic could soon end. For its part as a regulator, the college started contacting retired registrants in February 2021, inviting them to re-register to assist with COVID-19 vaccinations. To date, 138 have heeded this call and stepped up to support BC's vaccination plan. I want to personally thank everyone who re-registered and to all those who continue to work tirelessly on the front lines to care for patients during this difficult time. While BC's vaccination rate is encouraging, achieving herd immunity continues to be impeded by those who are vaccine hesitant. The college has expressed concern about the false information that may be influencing some vaccine resistors on social media and other channels. In response, in May of this year, the college issued a joint statement with the First Nations Health Authority, reminding registrants of their professional and ethical obligations to be guided by scientific evidence. While we all look forward to a new normal, misinformation that is contrary to public health orders at this critical stage has the potential to put patients at risk and will no doubt delay our collective progress to the end of the pandemic. The college was also acutely aware this past year of the opioid crisis raging in BC and across Canada. Reports have shown that the pandemic further exacerbated the risks and potential for harm among patients with opioid use disorder and other substance use disorders. On July 15th, the BC Ministry of Health and Addictions and the BC Ministry of Health released a policy direction paper entitled Access to Prescribed Safer Supply in British Columbia. The college recognizes that providing pharmaceutical-grade alternatives to the toxic street supply, both in the context of a comprehensive treatment plan or as a standalone harm reduction strategy, allows registrants to support patients with opioid use disorder and may reduce their risk of overdose and death. The college will continue to review its position as the Prescription Safe Supply Initiative evolves and as regional and provincial clinical practice guidelines are developed. Dr. Mary Ellen Turpel-Lafon's report, In Plain Sight, exposed the extent to which Indigenous-specific racism exists in the healthcare system in BC. In its response, the college made a public commitment to critically review its own operations and processes to ensure the safety and well-being of Indigenous patients. This commitment was highlighted last October when the college board added cultural safety and humility as a core pillar of its 2021 to 2024 strategic plan. Since then, progress has been made on several fronts to help achieve the priorities that support that pillar. This includes hiring a complaints navigator trained in trauma-informed care and conducting an audit of the existing complaints process to ensure Indigenous people feel safe and supported when filing a complaint. Developing a cultural safety and humility practice standard with extensive consultation with registrants, the public, and members of the Indigenous community. And in August of this year, a rebranding process was launched with a key goal of replacing the college crest, which is distinctly colonial symbol. The intention is to replace the crest with a new visual identity that reflects the college's current values of inclusivity and accessibility. The college also continues to apply the lens of cultural safety and humility to areas such as governance and decision-making, broadening the Indigenous membership on its board and committees, and providing training and education to employees, board, and committee members in cultural safety and humility, unconscious bias, and trauma-informed care. While these are signs of progress, the discovery of the remains of 215 children at the former Kamloops Residential School and other locations across the country is a stark reminder that racism against Indigenous people results in tragic outcomes. It makes clear that there is still much for the college to learn about this country's colonial past and its part in this history, and much for the college to do before racism is eliminated in the healthcare system. It reinforces the college's journey toward the truth and reconciliation. Against the backdrop of these major events and issues, healthcare regulation in British Columbia is undergoing a significant modernization process as proposed by a tri-party steering committee, including a reduction in the total number of colleges. This led to this college's amalgamation last year on August 31st, 2020, with the College of Podiatric Surgeons of BC. The amalgamation process was multifaceted. It involved amending bylaws, regulations, including creating new classes of registration, reappointing the board, moving records, conducting a regulatory and financial audit, and identifying the types of activities performed by podiatric surgeons to ensure compliance with existing standards. Since then, the college continues to modernize its practices and processes to better serve the public in our ever-changing times. Examples from this past year include the change to accept complaints against registrants via email and publishing a new virtual care practice standard to better reflect the current state of complementary care models. We have appreciated our registrants' ability to optimize virtual care during this past year and recognize the many benefits it affords to patients. I am confident that the board's strategic pillars of continuous quality improvement, cultural safety and humility, regulatory innovation, and stakeholder engagement position the college to be a leading partner in the modernization of healthcare regulation. The board, the leadership team, and employees of the college will continue to serve the public by building upon the progress and priorities I've outlined in this report. The times we are in may be extraordinary, but if the past year was any indication, I am confident that we will be able to overcome whatever uncertainty awaits us while we shape the future together. That concludes my report. I will now open the floor to any other business or questions. Just as a reminder, if you have a question, please use the Q&A feature found on the ribbon at the bottom of your screen.
Thank you, Dr. Priestman. We just have one question so far in the chat, and that I'll direct to Dr. Otter to redirect as appropriate. The question is wondering if the college has acknowledged the fact that the registration and incorporation process takes too long compared to other colleges. This has been quite a frustrating experience, and wondering if there's going to be any measures to improve this process going forward.
Thank you for that question. We actually do compare our registration times with our peers across Canada, and we recognize that there are processes in British Columbia because of our unique legislation, such as a requirement for criminal record check, that may add additional time to that. We are using the application for medical registration across Canada, so we have a fully incorporated electronic application process. In terms of those who hold full registration without essentially clean certificates of professional conduct and moving from one Canadian jurisdiction to another, I'm pleased to report that we're actually launching a fast track process which will be expedited and allow for very quick recognition of registrants coming to British Columbia who hold full unrestricted license in another jurisdiction in Canada with clean certificates of professional conduct. And I would invite Mr. Kierstead to provide comment about the incorporation process, as that is within his portfolio. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Otter. I'd just like to point out in relation to the corporation's processes that we have undergone a process review with it. And in consultation with corporation holders, as well as their legal counsel and some accountants, we have determined that it is best to shift some of the responsibility formerly undertaken by college staff in determining whether or not certain changes to shareholders, as an example, comply with the bylaws. We will be shifting that to an annual licensure renewal form question, attesting that that is so. And then we will simply be informed of any changes rather than having to vet them in advance. I expect that this is going to free up considerable time so that staff can focus in the appropriate place, which is on the incorporation of new corporations. And that will be able to be done in a more timely way. I am aware of concerns that in some instances, these do take longer than people expect them to. I'm sensitive to that. And we are working very hard to ensure that we can streamline the process as much as possible in the very, very near future.
Thank you very much. The next question, Dr. Otter, is with regards to the college's position on virtual care.
Thank you. That's a great question. Virtual care, I think, has taken off and truly become an acceptable method of providing healthcare around the world as a consequence of COVID-19. I think that the uptake of telemedicine or virtually enabled healthcare in Canada prior to COVID-19 was actually quite limited. So I think virtual care is a part of the types of care that we expect all physicians to be able to deliver. Some types of care are obviously more suitable for a virtual environment than others. I do want to bring the profession's attention to our updated standard on virtual care. Pretty much every regulatory authority in Canada is updating its position on what constitutes acceptable virtual care, including the importance of ensuring that patients can access face-to-face care when appropriate and when needed. So we spend a lot of time working with our key partners and ensuring quality of care, because that is very much the purview of the college. And just to say that for groups of physicians, myself or Dr. Derek Putterster, we've been out doing presentations on how to operationalize the college's standards on virtual care to groups of physicians. We're doing that virtually again. With the magic of Zoom, we can do presentations. We've provided these presentations to a number of the divisions of family practice. We're also meeting with the regional health authorities as well. So please contact the college through the communications department, and we would be happy to bring a presentation to your medical group.
Thank you, Dr. Otter. Do participants have any further questions? Please put them in the Q&A if you do. Oh, I have one more here. What is the college's position on licensing requirements for foreign medical graduates, and is it consistent with other Canadian provinces?
We have a national approach to how we recognize and register internationally educated physicians. Some provinces have greater capacity to do practice-ready assessments of those individuals who come from jurisdictions from which we're not as familiar with their training requirements. So it may be easier to get a practice-ready assessment in another Canadian province than in British Columbia, but we essentially have the same requirements around certification, provisional registration subject to sponsorship and supervision, and an expectation that Canadian qualifying examinations will be completed.
Thank you, Dr. Otter. I just have one more. Are clinical teachers allowed to ask medical students or residents about their vaccination status?
Yeah, we are in discussions with the Faculty of Medicine at UBC. We will actually be issuing some kind of guidance, or UBC will be issuing some kind of guidance shortly about vaccine status and what is going to be expected of learners. It's obviously with the PHO order that you must be vaccinated if you are going to be in a health authority setting. It is going to be expected, but we're not sure where that locus of accountability for determining vaccine status is going to be. It won't be with the college, but we do want to assist with the communication of those expectations. We anticipate having an answer to that in the next few weeks, and I'm sorry, we just don't have that information today.
Thank you. This question is with regards to starting training programs like medical records. When is the college going to start training programs like medical records, etc.?
Susan, can you answer that one for me?
If I'm interpreting it correctly, we do have a course on medical record keeping. Do you think that's what the question is referring to?
Yeah, we have converted some of our training programs to online platforms. I assume that that's what that is about. Unless Michael Murray, are you available to answer that question?
He is in attendance, but
yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Go ahead, Michael.
Yes. Yep, certainly. That is correct. The PPEP program does have a medical record keeping course. We do invite physicians to attend that, but it is open to any physician that wants to take them. If they contact PPEP at the college, then we can communicate with them what those dates are. So we do invite anyone to attend that in advance of any assessment or to learn about medical record keeping in more detail. We also are working with Susan and the communications group to actually develop a 3 to 4 hour online medical record keeping course that can be used by registrants, and that will be open to all registrants as well.
Thank you. And then the next question, Dr. Otter, will the college take any disciplinary action against physicians who spread misinformation about vaccination?
Thank you for that question. I think we've been quite clear in our public statements that physicians do expose themselves to the potential of the inquiry committee and potentially discipline committee of the college if they are found to be guilty of unprofessional conduct. And I would direct registrants to the messaging on our website about what we're expecting of physicians. Obviously, these are not decisions that are made by staff. We have a complaints process, and I will leave it at that.
Thank you. Does the college have any designated clinical preceptors to do clinical observership for IMGs? It has been difficult to find one.
Yes, we don't actually have a list of people who are prepared to do this work at this time. We do ask when physicians renew their license if they are interested in doing that. But I think that with the difficulties of COVID, in-office placements have been quite limited. And I appreciate that that is an additional barrier for the internationally educated community. We do hope that once we have COVID a little bit in the rearview mirror, that these will be opportunities that will be more readily available.
A question about whether or not the college has any plans to do a virtual education day. Go ahead, Dr. Otter.
Yeah, so the board decided a couple of years ago that instead of an annual education day that we had been offering in at the Vancouver Trade and Convention Center, that we would move to focused educational programs that would be offered through webinars and the like. So we're not planning an education day per se, but we are planning on having education sessions that will be available online. What we found is that our attendance at the annual education day was dropping, and we think that having web-based educational opportunities are more flexible and are better suited for meeting the educational needs of busy practitioners.
Thank you. One last question. Are there any guidelines about medical records when doctors retire from practice?
Yes, that information is on the website under standards and guidelines, and it is there under leaving practice. And I want to acknowledge that this is obviously a very significant responsibility when physicians are retiring or leaving practice. And there's some very good advice on our website, as well as the Canadian Medical Protective Association website.
Thank you, Dr. Otter. Does the college have any comment on the ministry's plan to replace registrant physician anesthesiologists with far less educated nurse anesthetists? What is the college doing to uphold the safety of patients undergoing anesthetic care in BC?
So I will note that the plan to bring in nurse anesthetists is it's our understanding of the college that that is on hold. We are working with the ministry to do what does fall into our regulatory wheelhouse, which is the delegation and supervision of anesthesia assistants in British Columbia. And it's been a very active file, and we hope to be able to make some announcements on that with the ministry over the next month or two. Obviously, we don't regulate nurses, and it is entirely the purview of the ministry to decide what they how they wish to deploy other types of practitioners. But to the extent that it is within our responsibility, we are doing what we can to make sure that safe and effective anesthesia services provided by either anesthesiologists or family practice anesthetists are provided using anesthesia assistants and through orders of either delegation or authorization under supervision.
Dr. Otter, Dr. Priestman, there are no further questions, but I would certainly invite registrants to contact us at any time in the future at communications@cpsbc.ca if any other questions come up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now conclude the 2021 Annual General Meeting and thank all of you for joining us this virtual meeting today. The minutes from the meeting will be posted on the college website. Have a good day, and please continue to stay safe.